The opinions expressed on this program represent the viewpoints of individual authors or contributors and do not necessarily reflect those of Troy University. This is Alabama Politics with Steve Flowers, an in-depth interview with Alabama's top political newsmakers. Now, from the studios of Troy University, here is Steve Flowers.
I'm Steve Flowers, and welcome to Alabama Politics. Folks, tonight we're going to go in the second edition of the legendary Bill Baxley series on Alabama politics. Bill's the longest-serving, most prominent Attorney General in Alabama history, elected at age 28, but also a longtime Lieutenant Governor. Last week we went into his childhood, grew up in Dothan, and grew up in his daddy's courtroom in Houston County. But we're going to get right into the political arena this year, this week. Beginning in 1970, a young Bill Baxley was elected Attorney General of Alabama at age 28, and the youngest Attorney General in Alabama history and also in American history. But Bill had been born and raised in Dothan, had been DA. Go into that year because that was a legendary year in Alabama politics. You had the Brewer-Wallace race for governor. Howell Heffer's elected to the state Supreme Court Chief Justice. And you came out of the Dothan area and beat the longtime McDonald Gallion, who had been a long time serving Attorney General in 1970. But go back to that, how you got that race started in 70 and beat McDonald Gallion at 28 years old. Were you 28 or 27?
28.
28. All right, go into that race. How long have you been DA in Houston County?
Well, I was been DA a full term and part of another term.
Mm-hmm. What, you about 23 when you were DA, wasn't you?
I think 24.
24. Okay. Go into that, when did you decide as DA, McDonald Gallion, you were such a good prosecutor at 25 years old, he had you prosecuting criminals around doing...
When I was DA in Dothan, he was the Attorney General for his second term. And he sent me around. The Attorney General can move in another DA from one circuit to another to help try out or take over when the DA can't handle a case or something like that. So he sent me around several places to try cases, and I was glad to do it. I love trying. Nothing I love better still than trying a case. And so he sent me, I remember the longest time was he sent me up to Huntsville, to Madison County, to handle a very hard investigation against the DA and the sheriff and the city attorney and some bail bondsmen, and it was a long assignment. Then I'd have to go back down to Dothan and try my regular docket and then go back to Huntsville. That lasted several months. I spent a good bit of time trying some cases in Covington County. I had a new DA that I went over to help. Was a good guy, a real good guy. So he sent me over the state trying cases, and I got to know law enforcement in all parts of the state. And when they tried to use my age against me when I ran, I responded. Back then, you had speeches you could make all over the state, and in schools and not in the schools, but they'd have barbecues and fundraisers and have the candidates for all the statewide offices and all the county offices, and they'd make speeches, and that was I enjoyed that. I used to go to them when I was little, but I'd use those speeches to say if he talked about me not having experience, being young. I said, well, only thing I can think of, that being old helps you is getting experience, but I got way more experience because I've tried cases, dozens and dozens of cases that I've tried. I wish he would name one that he's ever tried. That helped me big time in getting elected, I think.
But what did you have to give up your DA race in 70 when you beat him for Attorney General?
No.
You had been elected to another term, so you...
Well, No, I didn't run for re-election.
Okay, so
I
you ran for
for
Attorney General.
Yeah.
So it was up or out then. You know,
Yeah.
So, but you knew you could do well practicing law in Dothan if you didn't win that. But back to the 70 race, go into that race, how you beat McDonald Gay. And it mean, you were running as a progressive candidate. The 70 governor's race was going on. Did that Brewer-Wallace race affect your race anyway? How that?
I don't think so. They had a third-party candidate that ran named Charles Woods. He was from Dothan.
Yeah.
And he was a war hero, and he'd gotten badly burned, and
Right.
he was a pilot. And Charles was a good man. He made a lot of money. Started a TV station in Dothan, the first
TDY.
one. And so it was Charles got over 100,000 votes, and so it had to be a runoff between Wallace and Brewer, and I was the only one running against Gallion, and so I won mine without a runoff. And then it was the Wallace-Brewer runoff, but I don't think it really affected.
No, it was over.
Yeah.
So you get elected in 1970, and you become Attorney General. You're the youngest Attorney General in Alabama history, American history. But you also set the stage. You let folks know you were progressive, not a right-wing reactionary racist, like a lot of the politicians were at that time. Wallace, particularly, and some others. Gallion probably was thought of that way. But you went in there and brought in the most progressive young group of lawyers with you. You set the stage. Byron Thompson was one of them. Who all else was in that group? Julia McPhillips was in there, wasn't he?
Yeah. Let me add one thing there before we leave this subject. I was the youngest Attorney General in the United States, but then I didn't hold that record very long, because a few years after that, Bill Clinton got elected Attorney General in Arkansas, and he was even younger than I was.
Is that so? He broke that record.
Yeah.
It's still Alabama history, though. 28,
Yeah.
But go back down. Tell us, our viewers, what was that? Byron was the first African American in that about that.
Well, yes. When I got elected, which was in May. Well, I call it elected. You really didn't get elected till till November.
Yeah.
When the general election, but the Republicans never ran
Right.
a full slate of candidates, and so if you won the primary and was the Democratic nominee, you knew back then you were going. If you just went and voted for yourself, that's one vote. That's all you needed in November. You'd be.
Oh, yeah.
You were going to be the next
Right.
office holder.
So it was over.
And so I won in May, so I really had about 7 or 8 months to get ready for what I was going to do, and think of who I was going to try to bring in as a staff and what I was going to do, and that was an advantage that people don't much have now. So we did some planning, but I reckon that race was. I liked George Wallace as a person, but did not agree with his politics at that time. He later changed. But you couldn't know Wallace and be around him without liking him, and I liked him and still do. But I disagreed with him.
Right.
And I in that primary, I voted the first time for Charles Woods.
He from Dothan. You knew him, yeah.
And, yes. And second time in that runoff with Wallace and Brewer, I voted for Brewer. But I never was a Brewer fan, because when I was in school that last year, 63, 64. I didn't finish till 64. And that was 63 was when Wallace did that schoolhouse door stand.
June of 63, yeah.
June 63, and I watched it out the back of the law school and thought it was terrible. But I remembered Albert Brewer was the Speaker of the House, and he stood beside Wallace in the schoolhouse door, and I saw it. So I never was a Brewer fan either. And Brewer was Speaker of the House and rammed through all of Wallace's legislation that I thought was hate legislation. And I found out later that Wallace had tried to make Jim Allen, who at that time was the lieutenant governor. It was Wallace, Jim Allen, and Brewer as the three top. And Wallace tried to make Jim Allen come stand in the door, and Jim Allen, to his credit, wouldn't do it.
Wouldn't do it.
And Jim Allen was very conservative.
Oh, yeah.
But, so I never was a Brewer fan because I watched Brewer stand right there with Wallace. And then when Wallace got beat Brewer, Brewer still had, 7 months as in office as governor, and he could have, during that 7 months, hired blacks back then. After they had all voted for him nearly, not for Wallace, and Brewer didn't hire a single one. So when I came in, the only blacks that worked for the state were cafeteria workers and custodial workers, and they weren't part of the merit system. So I started trying to find some qualified blacks to hire as, they weren't that many graduating from law school, but the first one that I found was Myron Thompson. My daddy found Myron because he was friends with Myron's granddaddy, who was from Dothan and well thought of in the black community and the white community, and so.
Named Glanton, wasn't he?
Mr. John Henry Glanton. That was Myron's grandfather. And he was, and Judge Thompson was the first black, not only the first black assistant, he was the first black to work in the merit system for the state.
Myron Thompson was.
Yeah, yes, he was.
Who later became a legendary federal judge.
Yes, and he got appointed judge later by, I think Senator Heflin was the main backer of Judge Thompson. He was appointed federal judge by, who was it, Carter, I reckon.
But you brought in, besides after Myron, there were other African-American judges, but there were also some very progressive, brilliant young Caucasian lawyers, Julian McPhillips, Bill Stevens. Name some of them that crew that was in that crew you brought in.
Oh, gosh. Well, I mean, we had George Beck, who was my deputy attorney general. He was one of the greatest lawyers, still is.
Beck still practiced law at Ag City, isn't he?
Yeah, yes. Beck was from Geneva.
Yeah.
We had Hank Cadell from Decatur.
Hank Cadell, Decatur.
Decatur, he came back and started, I put him to start the environmental division. Bill Stevens came back. Hank finished Harvard Law School. Cadell finished, Stevens finished at Harvard too, I believe. And we had Myron finished at Yale.
Yeah. Stevens went to Ivy School, didn't
What?
Stevens went to Ivy League School, didn't he?
Yes. He went to Auburn undergrad.
Oh, yeah.
But then he went to, he finished law school at...
Dickie Calhoun was in that group.
Oh, he was, yes, Dickie was great.
Don Dickert was in there.
Don Dickert was,
He was a Cap Sig with you.
Yes, and also the first female in the Attorney General's office was Sally Maddox at the time, later married Sally Greenhall, and she became...
I forgot about Sally being in there.
Don Dickert was the first one I hired in the merit system, and the second person I hired was Sally. It was right about the same. I think I hired them same week.
Bill, remember that softball team we had? I played on with you.
Oh yeah.
Y'all weren't worth nothing, but we had a good time.
Oh, you were our star player. You could hit it further than anybody in the league.
The Cadell and them didn't learn softball in the Ivy League school. I don't think they weren't very good. We go to Sahara every night after the ball game. Remember that? Everybody went to Sahara.
Well, you were by far our best player because you could hit it. You hit more home runs than anybody in that league. It was church league. We were the only team in there that went to church.
Right. The Sahara was everybody went to Sahara, didn't they?
Yeah.
You like to go, had all the governor's pictures on the wall and everything?
Yeah.
And going back on the further 70, so through the 70 thing, you did a lot of great things. We'll hit that in the next third and fourth series, some of the famous cases, but let's stay on politics. 74, you didn't really have an opponent for re-election, did you?
No. But you started, I named some, I feel bad about not naming so many lawyers because there were so many that I didn't name that were great lawyers, and that's the secret of whatever success we had was the people that I was able to hire that did amazing things.
Bill, tell the Charles Price story. You brought him in as an African-American lawyer. He was a legendary circuit judge here in Montgomery. But tell the story how you brought him in too. He wasn't going to come at first, was he?
Well, Charlie Price, I offered him the job before I offered it to Myron, and Charlie was working for the Nixon Justice Department. And my friend Ira DeMint was the U.S. Attorney, and he knew Price from some way, and he took me to Washington to introduce me to the top people in the Justice Department, because Ira was a big Republican and was U.S. Attorney.
But
great
lawyer.
Great lawyer, one of the best ever. And so Ira and I went to Washington. Ira introduced me around, introduced me to Price, offered Price a job. And so when I told Price what we could pay, because it was a merit system, set by law, and Price said, I can't come to work for no slave wages. And so he stayed up there, and otherwise he would have been the first. I offered it to 2 other people that before we found Myron, and Myron agreed to come back. He turned down offers of a lot more money from big firms in New York, and to come back down here and come back to Alabama. Well, Myron did, and he was in a way like Jackie Robinson, since he was the first black to work for the state. If he hadn't been better than good, it could have been adverse to the future of us hiring people regardless of their race or creed or whatever. But Myron was great.
Bill, tell us but one thing about Charles Price, backing up, continue with him.
Yeah, there's one thing I want to tell about that.
All right.
Price did come later.
That's what
but that's not the thing. I'm going to tell this one first. He called me and says, that job's still open? I said, yeah. He said, well, I still can't come for those slave wages, but if you can find me some part-time job to where I can supplement, I got kids to raise, family here. So I was able to get him a job teaching part-time at night at Alabama State. And so that supplemented him $150 or so a month. And so Price came back and was the 3rd black lawyer. But the story I want to tell about Price is the Attorney General is in control of all the prosecution for the state. He can supervise or superintend, the code says, any DA in the state. And the district attorney in Escambia County, Bruton and Atmore, and Florella's Bruton and Atmore, and Escambia County.
Pretty white circuit down there at that time.
Yeah, it's probably about 25-30% black, maybe right around there. But they had a DA that was sick, and he bad sick, and so they had to get me to sending people down there. And so we sent people joining DAs, and he didn't get any better. And so it got where we had to keep somebody down there full time. And so they came up there from Escambia County. It was sheriff and chief deputy and probate judge. Probate judge was my good friend, Judge Kirkland.
Rio's daddy.
Mother.
Mother, yeah,
mother,
that's right.
Yeah. And and that was Rio Kirkland's mother. And so chairman of the county commission, all the leaders came up there and said, you got to send us somebody down here full time. So I said, well, all right, let me think about it. So I thought about it. They said, we want you to send us the best prosecutor you got. We got to have a hardcore prosecutor that's down here every day. So I said, well, best prosecutor I've got that I can take off other stuff is Charlie Price. So I said, all right, I'm sending you my best prosecutor, Charles Price, and he'll be down there. So Price showed up. So then I got a call from all of them after Price showed up down there. And they said, Mr. Baxley said, that prosecutor you sent us to be our DA, he's colored. And I said, well, yeah, I know that. It's easy to tell. He said, well, that might not be the best thing. I said, well, you told me you wanted the best prosecutor, and I sent you the best prosecutor. And so I said, he's the one going to stay down there. And so I hung up the phone. And so Price stayed down there, and he got in court, and they hadn't seen anybody like him in court. And he was tough, and the officers loved him, the policemen loved him, the sheriffs and the sheriff's deputies loved him. And so he stayed down. It was time to come back. I said, I got to get Price back up here. And by then, a month or two had passed. And they said, no, we can't let him go. We got to keep him. And so I said, I'll let him stay one more month. Y'all going to have to make some other arrangements, get the DA to resign, let the governor appoint a DA or something. I got to have him back up here. We need him. This is not a unlimited supply office, and I need him up here. So I said, I'll let him stay one more month. I might have let him stay 2 more months. And so finally I said, he's got to come back. He's coming back on the end of this month. By then he'd been down there about 4 months. But they had never had a prosecutor like him.
They didn't want him to stay down there then.
And so they got on the phone, and I think it was the same voice that had said, when I first sent him down there, one of them hollered out, said, if you leave him down here, you'll never get another vote in Escambia County. And so I said, well, that'll have to be the way it is. So I hung up. So then 4 or 5 months later, they called and begging me not to take Price away. And I said, well, I've got to have him back. I've done extended it. This time he's coming back. He's coming back first of the month. And so that same voice hollered up, if you take our DA away, you're never going to get another vote in Escambia County. And it was the same one that said, if you send that colored man down here, he'll never get another vote. But they loved Price. And
Bill, I love that story. But while we own him, I want to talk about one of the most poignant stories you've told privately, but I don't think everybody would know about it. You've been honored a lot by being one of the best attorney generals in history, being a very progressive attorney general and everything. And I remember going to one event in downtown Birmingham. It was a really good one, but there was one. I think Charles has 2 children. I know Susan Price is vice chancellor of the community college system, but he has a son that's become a circuit judge in Jefferson County. Tell the story about how they had you down there, if you don't mind. It tells a lot about how much you thought of in the state as being a progressive. When you went to his investiture or something down in Jefferson County, you told me. You mind telling that story?
Steve, I'll tell it. I don't want it to sound like I'm tooting my own horn, but it was
sort of
it's touching. It's very touching to me. What are you talking about? Judge Price had 2 outstanding children. Susan, as you mentioned, she was at one time assistant DA in the state of Washington.
I didn't know that.
I mean, an assistant attorney general in the state of Washington. Yeah, she's got a law degree. She's with the
community college system. Yeah.
Yeah, and his youngest son, his son. He's got Susan, and he's got a son named Chuck.
Right.
I think his name's Charles,
That's
but we
his
call
daddy.
him Chuck. Yeah, and so he got elected circuit judge in Birmingham, in Jefferson County. And he's a very great judge, just like taking after his daddy. And, you know, Charlie was the presiding judge in Montgomery for years. And he was also with the city of Montgomery for a while before he did that. But he just had an outstanding career. But Chuck got elected and got sworn in. And I took my 2 of my boys that are lawyers in Birmingham, I wanted them to go to Chuck swearing in, so we went to his swearing in, and his daddy, Charlie, who was the one that worked and was one of the first blacks to work for the state, he was retired from Montgomery presiding judge by then, but he was the MC and
of his son's
made the speech for his son's investiture. Yeah, and in fact, he swore him in, I think. And
appropriate.
So I took my two boys that were lawyers because I wanted them to see my friend Judge Price's son get in, and we were sitting in the audience, and it was I didn't realize until that we had as many black lawyers in Birmingham by now as we have, but the courtroom was full of lawyers. I mean, overwhelmingly full. People standing around, and quite a few of them were black. And didn't know nearly that. Most of them were young, you know, and I didn't know a lot of them, but I knew quite a few. But Judge Price got up there, and I was embarrassed, and but he and made his remarks, and he said, I just want y'all in this courtroom to know something. Said, there's a man sitting in this courtroom, pointed to me and said, Bill Baxley, said, he hired me, but I want y'all to know if it hadn't been for him, a lot of y'all wouldn't be here in Alabama working. You'd be working somewhere else, and that's embarrassing to me to say that, but it meant as much to me as anything anybody's ever said, and I don't know that it's true, but
well, it's very succinct and very true. Your history as 8 years as Attorney General are marked by being historic for being progressive and prosecuting people for past sins and different things. And we're fixing to wrap up the second edition of Bill Baxley's interview on Alabama political history, but starting next week, we're going to get in some really famous cases that many of y'all may not realize that Bill Baxley was involved in during his 8 years as Alabama's most progressive and probably successful Attorney General from 1970 to 78. But we're going to get in some real famous cases in our next edition. So we want to thank y'all for watching the second edition of Bill Baxley, the legendary Bill Baxley's story. And beginning next week, we're going to get in some really, really important cases that we'll talk about next week, and we hope you viewers will tune in next week for the third edition of Bill Baxley. We thank y'all for watching. Hope you'll tune in next week for Alabama Politics. Thank you.
This has been Alabama Politics with Steve Flowers, a production of Troy University Television. Opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of Troy University, its administration, faculty, staff, or students.